Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Token Podcast. I'm your host and sometimes referee, the friendly neighborhood, Zach Pearson. And today, I'm joined by he who is knowledgeable, intellectual, forever seeking new words, 1,000 upon one of them, a one Houston Pierce.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for having me on, Zach. I appreciate it. Name is Houston. I'm a podcast host of the podcast 1000 Crazy Questions. Check it out wherever you find your podcast.
All right, always happy to hear from you. And next we have our returning legend, the historian himself, Ingling, Lord Ingling.
Hi, it's glad to be back. I'm excited for this topic. Yep.
All right, so with that being said, we're going to get into it. Mr. Houston, we're going to have you go first. So I'm going to just ask you right off the bat, after having seen the gameplay demonstration of 007 First Light, and also being a unique, just going from range of Bond information on the lighter side, which is a good thing, because again, we're here for differences of opinion, not an echo chamber. What does 007 First Light have to get right to get your dollar?
It seems like, from what I've seen, it looks pretty. I mean, it's all in the comments. It's Hitman. Everyone keeps comparing it to Hitman, and it looks like Hitman. I mean, which isn't a bad thing. That's a good franchise. It's fun. So it kind of has my interest, and I hear that it's like a Telltale type game where your decisions influence the story. So that's pretty cool too. I mean, Hitman does a little bit of that, but hopefully First Light takes it even further, which makes it more interesting. Honestly, it seems like they're doing everything right in my eyes. I think the problems may show up later on in the gameplay, like just when it gets released. But as far as what it takes for them to like persuade me, I'm interested. I mean, it's James Bond is a big IP, and I know that, who doesn't know James Bond? So I'm pretty sure it's gonna sell good, and I would like to buy it. I mean, like, well, if it's reasonably priced, but like if the price is right, nothing so far has deterred me. Has said this game looks like it's gonna be bad, or it's unimaginative. I mean, yeah, sure, it's just shares Hitman qualities, but it looks fine to me. Honestly, I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of done. It looks okay. Unless something else rears its ugly head, unless something happens, it seems okay. I mean, James Bond looks like Tom Holland, but outside of that, yeah, it looks fine. That's what I think.
Okay. Well, I definitely appreciate your comments as always. Now, for me in particular, I'm going to parrot some of the stuff you say, so I'm going to just get that out the way first. Yes, there is a possibility and potentiality of a Hitman comparison, but that is the furthest thing from a goddamn insult. First and foremost, who is the original super spy and secret agent? James Bond. Who is the basis for everyone from a little fragment of Metal Gear Solid, Siphon Filter for the old folks who I know no young person remember that, and also Splinter Cell. All roads lead to the UK. Okay? So, for the company that basically outlasted every other tactical espionage formatted instance of a game that's popular or even has gotten to the mainstream, which in and of itself is a rarity, to get James Bond is the definition of Michael Jordan getting to dunk a basketball. We all love it. We all want it to happen. We all see it coming when it does. Nothing can go wrong unless it's on the corporate level. This is one of those situations where if this game is truly bad, we know whose fault it is. Same with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Yes, I'm slightly going off on a fighting game tangent, but I'm going to give y'all the short version. We all know that the main reason that game was as terrible as it was in comparison to literally every other game that's in that franchise and series is quite literally, no pun intended, because corporate interference got in the way of the creatives unnecessarily. I understand that they didn't have licensing access directly to other characters and they'd have to go through a third-party system and whatnot. That wasn't the problem. The problem was not only that, but everything else. Marvel had too much to say, control, and dictate with that. And the person that they even had as their primary liaison was not even a game player in and of itself. So literally you have the blind leading the people that can see, and the people that can see are mute.
Dang, that's a good comparison. That's a crazy good comparison.
Yeah, like,
Analogy.
Yeah, analogy. But you got to remember, I've had years to come up with it. That game dropped in 2015. Literally, it has been 10 years since that game has come out. And the only reason people play it now is because a third-party person saw the trash, sorted it, and then refined it, and made Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite Beyond, and people still don't know about it. He literally took a game and gave it what it was missing, direction. And it's a PC mod. It's free. Seriously, go look it up. But back off that tangent. Here we are in the same situation. Now, IO Interactive's, or really just the Hitman franchise's biggest enemy, was Square Enix. Specifically, Square Enix Europe. But they're not in charge anymore. So, that means that they're essentially free to do what they've always do. Have a ball and get creative. But here's the thing though. Hitman is inherently not necessarily a good guy. Yes, they want to build them up as if I am the good guy who does bad things to make sure there are good outcomes. That's anti-hero stuff. But here's the problem with that. That's just marketing bullshit. In Hitman, you can murder anybody, and if you murder somebody and you don't get caught, they were just in your way. They're collateral damage. You couldn't possibly treat human life lesser than if they were just collateral damage. That's like comparing a human being to a piece of cement on the ground. Oh, it chipped off the side of the sidewalk. Whoops, don't care. But now we have that added consciousness. Like, you know, if he kills the wrong people or the wrong person, it'll probably be an automatic game over. You know that if you create a situation of chaos and you don't have that license to kill, you got to figure out how you can get out of there, or you got to make sure you're only killing that one direct target and that you're not seen. There are so many unique situations that could be parables to Hitman situations, but also not. It's insane. Hitman's only real difference from James Bond was how the gadgets are handled. There is no like legitimate sci-fi, almost ambiguous element to Hitman's gadgets, and they're always on a lower scale. But no, now we have the king of the all gadgets and devices that even Solid Snake and Metal Gear Solid 5 hasn't caught up to, as the star of the show. And you still get the option of trying to talk your way out of situations instead of beating everything's ass. That means that all three of us could play the exact same game and we can do every single mission different. That is the one element of Hitman that has never crossed over into a James Bond game. It happened in Metal Gear, and that's being nice. Metal Gear didn't really do that. It was either you go in guns blazing because you don't give a shit, or you go and stealth around everywhere to the target and get as close as you can without killing someone, or you quietly kill people, hide the bodies, go where you was gonna go. And then maybe after you're done, you have to escape in a weird way because high sensory, super strong enemies show up. Okay? Like literally, that was all they did. But here, you can talk to people who don't know that you're not supposed to be there. You can hack open doors. You could even potentially, I heard, and this is a rumor from a leaks, you can use a temporary X-ray or see-through system, but that might be stage specific. You can rewire a goddamn plane to make sure you got an advantage, because in every room in that plane, everybody got an assault rifle but you. And that was in the opening demonstration. So, the way I'm looking at it, this is the first time where we might have a Bond who literally can match Daniel Craig era, which I know certain people don't like that, and that's okay. I get it. I legitimately get it. Daniel Craig era levels of craziness that happens on screen. Okay? I'm here for it. And as long as they don't charge me 90 whole ass dollars, you know, I'm on board, especially because I got a 4K TV and I got a PS5. Don't need no Pro. I think this game is going to be beautiful for me. But Zex, you got a PC. Well, first and foremost, I am not inherently a PC gamer. In fact, of all the people I know, I think I'm the only person whose Steam library has less than 40 fucking games. Okay? I'm not on that. And if I did get the PC version, it would be because they didn't make a DLC that turns the Bond into other Bonds. Because if I could find a way to play this game as Pierce Brosnan Bond, yes, I know he didn't have the best movies, but I liked him. I really wish they would stop with those random ass gay puns for somebody that got murdered. But hey, I enjoyed my Pierce Brosnan time. So that would be the only reason. And I'm not about to spend 140, maybe 150, 60 with tax on two copies of a game when I'm really only going to play one because of a skin. Nah, I just want them to strongly consider trying to get DLC skins. If they leave out Sean Connery, okay, I get it. That dude was notorious wife beater. All right, I get it. But every other Bond, man. In fact, they should have create a character mode where you can change Bond's face just so I could put in Pierce Brosnan. Yes, I know he's technically Scottish.
No, he's not. He's Irish.
Oh yeah, Irish. Sorry. Yes, I know he's Irish. The Bond was basically a voice and image he compiled, but he did a good job of it. God damn it. So,
I like it. No.
Yeah, exactly. The only other thing I would say is make sure that there's mission variety, not just here's a chase sequence, then here's a boss stage area after you get done with the stealth. That is cool, but mix it up. Maybe make one stage nothing but a ridiculously offensively long boss fight. Maybe make one stage just a car chase or a car race, and you have to win, and you have to make sure if you sabotage somebody, you don't kill them because they're just innocent race car drivers. You know, there's so many options for mission variety. They need to have, so to summarize for me, they need to have that good dummy thick mission variety. Like, it better cause an earthquake when it move. You can see it from the front levels of mission variety thickness. They better have the ability, I would prefer, to make our Bond wear disguises and just look like other people, because I want to make him look like any other Bond. I don't hate this new guy, by the way. And they need to make sure they don't get lazy with the combat, because it's easy to just, hey, here's a reticle, here's a gun, and let's randomize the recoil. I hate that people assume that that's good quality combat. It pisses me off. Okay, Borderlands gets away with it because the properties of the bullets change based on elements and other things relating to ballistic projectile physics. Okay, that's why they get away with it, and then they add special abilities. But this is James Bond. I got gadgets though, bro. Why can't I take my handgun, my PP7, patent pending, give it to a drone with a camera, and then control that drone, have it maybe shoot 2 or 3 people, and then it gets shot up, and then I have to go retrieve my gun because they shot up the drone, and then I can throw a smoke bomb, or I could completely rewire something besides the plane, maybe the electricity and stuff. And since I'm the only person with night vision, everybody else got flashlights, and then I can go through that whole area where normally I would have pulled up my license to kill and sprayed out the field and just smooth my way past the locked door and get to the boss. Okay, they need to make damn sure the mission variety and the mission completion variety are diverse as fuck. I end my time.
Sounds like,
Go ahead.
no, I was going to say this. A lot of that sounds like Arkham, the Arkham series, Batman and his gadgets.
Exactly.
And Watch Dogs too, with the amount of gadgets you can do and the hack stuff. I mean, not as variety, but same sort of deal. Yeah, elements of those two.
Yeah. All right. With that, I end my turn and I activate my trap card, Lord Ingling.
Okay. I had to press the caps lock twice there. I'll restart it right now. All right. So, yeah, I heard what you both said. I have some. So first of all, I think the game looks good. Let me just start with that because I am gonna focus on the things I don't like.
That's
but
fine.
I want to say that at least I think the game looks good. I really like the multiple pathway system. That sounds really cool. I like the idea of, replayability is really important to me because if you're gonna pay a lot of money for a game, and $90 is excessive. I don't want that. But I consider $70 a lot of money for a game. If I'm gonna be willing to put that down, and more importantly than money, a lot of time into a game, I like a game that's replayable and is enjoyable. And that's something that a lot of old games like 007 Nightfire have that I want this game to have. I would love a multiplayer version. 007 Nightfire had one of the best multiplayer bot setups of all time. Basically, you could set your bot's personalities. Something they did in very few games, where you could make a bot play greedy, where he goes around and collects all the weapons and doesn't want to fight anyone until he has the best shit. You can make a bot vengeful, which means he just gets butthurt at whoever killed him and targets that guy. That was a fantastic game, and I spent so many hours playing it, and I would love a multiplayer where we have customizable bots. I like that the environment has effects that reminds me a lot of Battlefield. I thought that that's very cool. Time for some negatives. I don't like the way the cars blow up so easily. I know that's a nitpick with every action movie and game at this point, but I feel like 10 bullets is a little goofy. You know, if I put a full round of 30 in there, I know that's not realistic, but that's at least a little better. Or, you know, with all these gadgets, why can't I just throw an explosive at the car? And that would blow it up. But I think bullets shouldn't really do that as fast, because it takes away the realisticness of using your environment. As far as gadgets go, there's a whole argument we could get into there. We're not going to. But every Bond doesn't consistently use the same level of gadgets, and that even varies not just by actor, but by film. So there's a differing school of thought on James Bond, and are you a minimal gadget guy or a maximum gadget guy? Craig is very light on the gadgets, which I actually like. Brosnan, who you mentioned you like, is very heavy on the gadgets. He has the heaviest gadget films. It's a mixed bag, though. You know, Connery has some films where he's got a ton of gadgets and some where he's got none. And, you know, there's basically no gadgets, for example, in From Russia with Love or in Dr. No, the first two films. Yeah, so I would say that the gadgets in this film, from what I've seen, seem more on the Brosnan side of, like, heavy on gadgets, which I don't mind. I think that it makes the games unique. It's fun. I think that there's a limit to what's reasonable with gadgets, and, you know, if we're going to have a gondola that drives on land, I don't really want that. That's a reference to Octopussy. I mean, not Octopussy, that's Moonraker, which, oddly enough, is one of the most successful Bond films, and, in my opinion, one of the worst Bond films. So, you know, like I said, there's a whole argument about, you know, is more gadgets better? Is less gadgets better? What type of Bond do you want to see? You know, I think one of the things Casino Royale did really well is that the most advanced gadget is a burner phone in the whole film. That the most advanced thing is a thing to refibrillate his heart, right? A phone, a refibrillator, and a car are the three most advanced pieces of tech that you actually see in that film, which I think it did quite well. Splinter Cell and its games have always been more sneaky and minimal on a lot of those things. There are some exceptions, but a lot of the good games tend to be a little bit more sneaky. I like the sneaky playthroughs, but again, that's a different type of Bond. Craig, and to an extent, Roger Moore, are shoot-em-ups in a lot of their films, and Connery is sneaking around a lot more in his movies. In any case, I thought, and this is going to be an unfair, because it's not going to hurt my ability to purchase the game, but this is, I think it's a fair criticism, but you might consider it unfair, and I'm fine with you not thinking that's fair with me. They reused a lot of the same character assets in this demo video. And I'm not talking about the enemies, you know, I mean, how diverse can you really make a bunch of white bad guys look? But I'm talking about the people in the party that are fancily dressed. And, you know, they're all like the same woman, like 8 times. I actually counted one of the women in a red dress, and there's like 6 or 7 of her. Like, just in every room. And I think that's kind of like... Skyrim had different character models for every NPC, with the exception of bandits and some of the soldiers that reused assets. And that game came out in 2011. This is 2025, 2026. You need to be developing different character models for your people at the party. It just does not look... It's too noticeable for a new game, in my opinion. And yes, I know that's a little silly. It's not really going to affect you. You're not going to be thinking back in a year after you finish the game, man, why did all those people look identical? But I think it hurts your immersion in a game. And especially where a lot of these people have unique pathways they could send you on. You know, what's going to happen? We're going to be like, well, which woman in the red dress? The one to the north of the bar? You know, I think they can make more character models. I don't think that's that hard. These parties aren't 1 million people in a town square. There are maybe 100 characters, tops. And you have to change a few little things and make the dresses 4 colors. So be it. Right? I do think, though, for a modern game, you shouldn't skimp on the price of the background characters. I think that it pulls a game together and makes it feel alive and not like a game. And I would like to see that. They did a beautiful job on the buildings. You know, the environment feels alive. You can almost see the wind and the sunshine, but the people feel robotic, which I didn't like as much. Like, why could they not hear him rustling through bushes? I hear like a squirrel when I turn around and go, what the fuck was that? I would definitely have heard him do a lot of those things, and I'd like to see the sneaking around be a little more realistic. But, you know, it's a minor nitpick with the character designs and the sneaking around. My other problem is that I don't know... Did anyone else watch that video and go, why doesn't he look what's in the suitcase? Because I was wondering that.
Yeah.
He couldn't get into the party. Why didn't he go see what was in the suitcase? I don't know. I like the multiple... Yeah, I like the multiple pathways, but I wonder how the limitations of that are going to be seen when we get in the game. Because those are going to be there. There's going to be a lot of pathways, but there's going to be a lot of times where it's like, oh, well, you can't go that way. Why? Video game. We didn't make that area, so invisible barrier. And, you know, I'm excited for all the pathways, but I know that games like this have a lot of barriers and limitations, and they're advertising the game as not having as many of those, and I really believe it will not have as many of those, but it's gonna have some. Are we allowed to see that suitcase? Are we not? I'm interested to know, and if I get the game, that's honestly gonna be the first thing I try to do, is, like, what if the guy in the suitcase has an ID card that lets you into that building, right? You know? It was the first thing that crossed my mind. I'm like, he should go... Was the person who was dead in the suitcase 009? You know, they're there to find 009. Like, that's a question for me that I'd be like, instantly like, wait a minute, he needed to check that. He's also not the main agent on that first mission. You know, there's 3 other agents, and they're already in the party. They told him not to get cocky and that he was a driver and to basically play his character. And you're taking the initiative. I consider looking in that suitcase. The other guys are never going to see that. The other 3 people are in the party. So I felt like that kind of like disappointed me a little bit that we didn't get to, you know, it got me interested, but I'm going to be disappointed if I get the game and I can't look through it. Like, I'm just not allowed to go over there. I mean, if it's a huge cliff, I get it. No one would go down that. But James Bond, I mean, come on, dude. Just stand by the edge, drop your wallet by mistake, and casually go walk down there like you must have dropped something, you know, and then walks down and goes and looks in the suitcase, you know? I also thought it was weird that those guys that he talked to at the door were like, oh, where's your ID? And he goes, I'm gonna go get it. And then your character didn't have to go get it? I feel like they would have instantly, like, sussed you out. Like, right then, they're like, that guy is fucking lying. That guy does not have an ID. Like, they would have just kicked that guy out right then. I'm glad he pretended to be a news guy, because this is another really stupid thing. His suit was really bad. And that's not supposed to matter, but it's James Bond.
God damn. I mean, I knew you was gonna hate, but I didn't think you was gonna come at the suit.
Yeah, I don't think James Bond should dress like Mao Zedong. So that's just kind of I don't know. He's kind of known for being a fashionable dude. In fact, James Bond, Sean Connery, in fact, had custom suits made from the top suit makers in London, in Chelsea at Savile Row, made his suits. Every suit you see Sean Connery in is custom fitted for him. That's a serious thing that they did for these films. And actually, Roger Moore, I don't like Roger Moore's suits as well, because they're leisure suits from the 70s. A lot of the time, that was the style. Today, you'd look at him and you'd say, is this guy trying to sell me a car? You wouldn't look at him and think, this guy's a suave man. But sometimes Roger Moore has a cool suit or two. And he actually did also have a Savile Row tailor in the 60s when he played arguably the first literary vigilante, Simon Templar, The Saint, which was a long-running show. In fact, it ran 10 years in the 60s. So, and it also has a long chain of books, very similar to how James Bond does. And looking at the 2 series together, they're both very British, and there's a lot of parallels there to be made. There's even some good little nods to James Bond in the Saint show. But the suits are very important to James Bond's identity, which is silly, but it's true. And I don't know. Again, he's dressed as a chauffeur, but I would not believe someone dressed like that is coming to that party. I'm just saying, that looked like a goofy, like, he could not say I'm a guest here, because he was not dressed for that occasion. You know? I don't know. Anyway, a goofy complaint. I do think the game looks really cool. I want to see the multiple pathways. I think it would be a fun game to talk with friends who are playing it about and be like, oh, okay, what did you do to get through there? That would be really fun. And I'm really excited for that. So I want to end on a positive note after dumping on character models and how I think there's going to be limitations. But yeah, I think the game's going to be good. I was hesitant to get it before I watched the video, and after seeing the video, my opinion changed a bit. So it had some charm to it. I don't have anything negative to say about Patrick Gibson's James Bond at this time. He's funny. James Bond is supposed to be witty and funny. You know, that's part of James Bond's charm. You know, I'm not going to complain about the hair color. That's a stupid argument. That ended back in the 70s when Roger Moore played James Bond, as far as I'm concerned, because he's not black-haired. He is a light brunette. So anyone who argues that is fucking... there's no point in going into James Blonde and all of those arguments about, oh, does he really look like a black-haired guy? I don't think that's... I mean, it's important to the literary character. It's like, well, the character looks like this in the book, right? But this First Light isn't a book, so I don't... How the character looks isn't that important. And if we really want to talk about the image of James Bond, that's not even, like, established in the books very well. But that's a whole nother discussion. I mean, I'll give you the short form. They refer to him as having a very Anglo-Saxon look in the first book, and later on he changed the character to be half Scottish and have a French-Swiss mother, so the French-speaking part of Switzerland. And I think that's because Ian Fleming wanted someone who had a skiing background in that area of Switzerland. In fact, all areas of Switzerland are pretty known for skiing. Not all, but many. And he actually chose to make James Bond Scottish because of Sean Connery. So Ian Fleming was still alive when Sean Connery was James Bond, and Sean Connery's portrayal of James Bond was so good that he modeled the character after Sean Connery. And Sean Connery's not even 100% Scottish. He's actually, he has descent from Irish travelers who were, kind of like traveling merchants that live in the UK that are of Irish descent. So he's a little of both. But he modeled the character to be Scottish on purpose. And yeah, I'm gonna move on now. And the only other thing I'd say to that is that I don't consider the character model. Like, people might complain Patrick Gibson is a redhead or brownhead or whatever. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what James Bond is. James Bond needs to blend in. That's the only thing important about James Bond. And, he's a spy. his appearance, he can't be showing up with blue hair. They'd be like, oh, that guy with blue hair? Yeah, he's a spy. Like, no. Everything else with James Bond, I don't give a shit about. So, if he can fit in a global scene as a spy and not stand out like a sore thumb, that's a fine depiction to me.
Okay, with that being said, we're going to move on to our next rotund topic of the evening. Who do you think should play the next Bond? Or do you feel as if we are due for some form of a redo/reboot of previous Bond-related movies, even though we have not gone through all of the books? And if you got time for it, once we go through all the books officially, finally, do you think that Hollywood should just make up their own stories, or European Hollywood should make up their own stories, or should they just, do something different?
I'm not answering this yet, but I'm just going to give you a few things. They aren't using the books for a specific reason. It's because of that lawsuit. They didn't want more lawsuits and other shit, red tape. Second of all, it's called Pinewood, which is pretty funny. The British Hollywood is called Pinewood. Anyway.
I never knew that. That is interesting.
Yeah. I just wanted you to know so you could intro it.
So what should Pinewood do with James Bond? Pinewood or Hollywood, I guess. Yeah, okay, so What my thoughts on this? I don't know if I've said this before. I'll say it now. My experience with James Bond as a character is uh, very shallow. I mean, he is James Bond. He's a figure. Everyone knows him, but it's kind of like I didn't really watch a lot of the Bond movies, and I didn't I never read any of the books, and he's not sacred about me. Like he's not sacred to me like other properties are. I'm more of a superhero type person. Like I know more about Batman, Superman, Captain America, all those other people. I've even watched more Mission Impossible movies, and I haven't seen all those either, but I've seen more of those. And James Bond has just somehow escaped my he's escaped my I don't know, criticism. I mean, what I know about him though, he's suave, he's cool. He James Bond kind of represents sophistication. He's the spy, like he's always been there. He's a womanizer, he's a killer, he's respectful, he's British, he's everything that the typical spy should be. So personally, and this is gonna sound like heresy, but I think because we've had so many years of James Bond, and because he's been around for so long, and we have all these definitive versions of him, starting with Connery, down to what's his name, this very last dude, who's what's his name? He was in oh god, what's this actor's name? He was Skyfall and Royale. Oh, thank you. That was killing me, Craig. Craig. We've had so many iterations. We've had so many people try it out. I think it's time to get weird. I think it's time to get weird with Bond. And this sounds. I know how this sounds. I know people love Bond, and so we don't have to get too weird. But Idris Elba's name was thrown out with like, oh, let's make him Bond, and people were like, well, Bond's not black, and like, yeah, he's not. But I think because we've had so many years, why not just make him black just because, or we can make him old, like really old, just because, and see what he could do there. I think just changing him radically, not too radically, but changing his age or his ethnicity to a point where he's kind of different would be very interesting to me. Let's make him Indian. I don't know. And gender swapping him, I don't know if that's far enough if we made Bond a woman. I feel like it's not bold enough. If we change his gender and his skin color, I think, or where he's from, like, okay, let's make him a woman, but he's Australian. I don't know. Something like that. I think if Bond were to change some type of crazy way, not too crazy, but you still keep the essence of the character, but in a way that makes it very he's a bit different. I would be game for that. And now again, I'll say this again: I do not hold Bond in my personal. I don't care about him as much as other people do. So it's easy for me to say this. I don't hold him close. But I think that's what should happen. Like, he's too profitable to not make a reboot of and not make a game and a movie of. He's just too profitable. He's too well liked, and I like Bond. So we should not cancel him. Not cancel or stop making things about him. But yeah, for the future, I think we should shake up this box a little bit, because we've had it for a good while. We've had great movies. And they're still there for everyone to enjoy. Like, you still want your definitive Bond. You can still watch Craig and Bronson and Connery and all those people. They're not gone. So it's not like we're erasing Bond's past. It's just we're adding a new weird now future of it. So that's what I think should happen with the future of Bond. And that just sounds very. I feel like I shouldn't even speak to it, because I've outed myself as someone who doesn't know a lot about Bond. But hey, that's my 2 cents there. And real quick, some things I wrote down from when you guys were talking earlier, I wanted to also point out. Sean Connery, like a Sean Connery skin, I know he has a past, and the woman beating thing, not cool. But if we do need a Sean Connery skin, I think it'd be crazy not to have a Sean Connery skin. I think
100% agree.
He is Bond. He was like he just was like hi, shake and not stir.
Yes.
You cannot have that. I mean, yeah, granted, Sean Connery the man, problematic, but Sean Connery is James Bond. or Bond was John Connery. Like they were synchronous. It's like saying Tony Stark shouldn't be Robert Downey Jr. Some people, some actors are just tied to a character. You can't take that from Connery, even though he's dead, right? I think he's dead. You just can't take it from him. And also about the thing about the briefcase, good point there. The Ingling, that was a great point. And the way the gameplay looks, he's doing a lot of shove attacks. Did you guys notice that? There's like a lot of shoving in the way he's fighting. I don't know, like Zach, you mentioned it, like the whole gun thing. I was like, yeah. Also, he shoves a lot in this, at least the gameplay. That's something I thought I'd point out. And lastly, like, oh yeah, he's a rule breaker. Is Bond? I mean, Bond breaks the rules, but why would you want an agent that breaks every rule, can't take orders? That's not a good quality of an agent. And James Bond is more than just a bullet. I remember, and I'm saying that because that was like a tagline in this new game, First Light. They're like, oh yeah, he's a bullet. He just needs a target. James Bond's more than a bullet. James Bond thinks he's a gun. He's a person behind a gun. So, sorry. Real quick, I thought I mentioned those three things because they kind of popped up while you two were talking earlier. But yeah, I'm done. The future of James Bond should be weird, and we need a Sean Connery skin.
Well, I do have a tad bit of good news for you. I don't know if you guys can hear my fan in the background. If you can, let me know. But the last Daniel Craig movie, they did just that. Because, see, James Bond was no longer 007, technically. He retired, right? So he had got replaced by a new 007. Because they have been implying since the beginning of James Bond era that, it's not here's a new take on that character. No, different people hold the title over time, and once they get the title, their name either becomes James Bond or James Bond is just the new 007, and the other 007s before him are not named. So basically, it's a title bestowed upon a rank system. Well, he got replaced, and it was a British African lady who was 007 in that movie. Then when it came time for him to get back in the field, she was legitimately hyper competitive with him, even though he's explaining to her or trying to ignore her and get her to realize this is not something that I want to compete about. I don't care about it anymore. It has ruined my life. The final Daniel Craig James Bond is a jaded man. And that's why I think he has, even if you don't like the trilogy of movies he's in, he has one of the best endings to his trilogy, because you get to see the natural progression of him realizing how destructive it is, even though he's doing the right thing technically. So that's how that went. But also, I'm glad you said that, because that kind of ties into what I want to see since I'm second. So I'm going to tell you straight up, I like what you said, but here's where I got deviations. You can call the movies 007. We've already known in multiple movies and multiple novels there were other numbers. Why don't we get a movie where there's 2 or 3 of them that continuously have to work together, instead of just, oh, I'm popping up just for this one movie and then I'm never heard from or seen from or even mentioned again. Okay, we got 007. Okay, what's 6 doing? How about 1? Is 1 considered hyper elite, or is 1 considered a baby? And you know what? Start it before he even gets a number, which is kind of what First Light is doing. But I mean, like, show us his actual life. Maybe even if it's just a good 20 to 30 minutes before they do that magical age transition like they used to do in old movies where they go into their adult version. Give me a movie that's half the origin story and then half him becoming a numbered agent. Then make the second one him realizing he needs to learn to play with the team, because you're not the star of the show. Like, his confidence and his ego is getting to him because, hey, I got the job done, But no, now they want 006 because his collateral damage level is getting a little too high. Then they want 005 to be a supervisor or director of the mission to make sure if Bond steps out of line, they have an excuse to get rid of him. Because Bond doesn't know what it means to be removed from the agency. For all Bond knows, he could think it means they're going to kill you, or it means that they're going to terminate, or they're going to just fire you. But he doesn't know. So since he quote unquote gets wind, we'll say from Q, that his neck is on the chopping block, we have to see him wrestle with, do I want to help these people, or do I want to make their deaths look like some type of an accident? Make it actually have that espionage era. Okay, you don't know who's your friend. You don't know who's your enemy. And in fact, I think it was the Bond after Sean Connery that had to do that one movie where he had to kill like 5 different other 00 agents because they had put in a system that, you know, he was a traitor and it was actually bullshit. You know? So it wouldn't even be the first time. So I want that. I want Bond to be the star of the show, yes. But I want Bond to have a supporting cast that isn't just, we're the people who give you your mission or your new gadgets, go do your shit, and then refer back to us every so often. No. Do it like you did with this last 007 movie with Daniel Craig. Have there be more than one agent, make them important to that franchise or that trilogy, because then they'll never have to worry about the licensing rights issue again. And I hate to say it, but normally in Hollywood, or well, this is Pinewood, but in Hollywood's case, we all know what happens. Somebody signs away the rights to something, and they're temporary or permanent, and they have a lot of restrictions or they have a little bit of restrictions. I'm looking at you, George R.R. Martin, and Tolkien too. But then once they die, everyone wants to fucking do their own thing, or they always wanted to do their own thing, but they wanted to put a thin veneer of a franchise behind it, which is fucking stupid. Just do your own shit if you're gonna do your own shit, right? And then they end up at some point in time, they will hire a writer or they will hire a director who don't give a shit about nothing, and they just want to do whatever they want to do because half of them are narcissistic sociopaths, or they feel like they're being creative and being an artist is an excuse to get away with completely fucking up a franchise that they never made. And then they'll blame it on everyone else but them. So Bond is in a weird story. They wanted to keep the quality up, but their problem is licensing. So they're doing exactly what England hinted at. You know, they're making stories that are good stories that happen to feature Bond. Okay, cool. Keep doing that. But also make sure you're including a bigger cast. Because real talk, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's very true in the modern era and in the past eras. No matter what happened in the book, no matter what happens in any form of media, when it gets adapted, sometimes it can be extremely successful and everyone likes it except the author because they completely butchered and changed everything he did. Biggest case in point that y'all don't even realize. The one that made put Jim Carrey on the map, The Mask. Literally nothing in that movie came from the comic books. Everything is completely different. You don't even learn the true origin of the mask. Right? That's one of the bigger examples I can think of. And if you want something more modern or recent that, you know, people may or may not have seen, Guardians of the Galaxy. They, for lack of a better term, have almost done complete character assassinations. But since the characters still retain their base personalities from the comic books, it works. But as far as what they go through and how they respond to these incidents, they are oftentimes completely different. Yondu shouldn't even exist. Literally, Yondu is a Guardian of the Galaxy from like the year 4,000 or 5,000. How the fuck did he raise Peter Quill? You know? But again, it did so well that people don't want to care. You don't even hear people who read Guardians of the Galaxy complain about Guardians of the Galaxy. But that was different. Guardians of the Galaxy was one of a very, very unpopular team that Marvel had even in the comics. They were never truly mainstream. So that's why there was so much leeway and there's been so little backlash. But you know, let Marvel do something like make a blonde, blue-eyed European American woman play Storm. You will never see a shitstorm, pun intended, bigger than that. I just read your lips on that one, so I'm the same way. I would literally turn into the biggest hater. I would go into Kendrick Lamarian levels of hatred if Marvel did something stupid like make the main motherfucker to play Storm a European American. I'm already torn on Halle Berry. She got a shit hand, but she didn't really care about the character in the first place, but she's been hiding it for years. But then when she found out the character was actually important to the concept of graphic novels and women in that shit, in that space, she's one of the oldest and most legendary, then she threw a shit fit. I'm not mad about that. Here's my problem. Halle Berry should never been playing Storm in the first place. And I've said it a billion times over. Don't get me wrong. I do not hate Halle Berry as a person. But Storm is African. The end. Period. That's it. Not half French and African. No, Storm is an African woman. She speaks 2 to 3 languages. English is not her first fucking language. Okay, and she detests and is disgusted by the sacrificing of human life in almost every single context. So Storm was always out of character, but because Halle Berry, not us, started complaining, that's when she got any level of attention back. And ever since then, we've had a hard time getting a good Storm because we got someone who basically looked like Storm. She completely whined and complained about the role, got into fights with people online about the character, shit talked her, and now everyone's happy she's gone, and apparently so is she. And she's never been heard from again. But to be fair, she wasn't really in the Hollywood system to begin with. Now, if she said Fox was treating her bad, that would have been a different completely. But no. And I don't want to see that happen in 007. So I think that it needs to have a very, very good balance, because it's not hard to find people who can write good espionage movies. It's not good to find people who can write a good action movie. You need to have that balance. And as long as they have that balance, people aren't going to care that they're not following the books, because as Ingling mentioned, if you even go through one surface layer, you'll realize that James Bond is the definition of licensing hell. You're better off making an audio drama about James Bond than you are anything else. They even get a little bit stingy with the video games. What'd you say?
So who do you want to be the Bond actor? Like, what's your... Because you guys both didn't answer. That was, like, part of the prompt. I'm just curious before I...
Well, yeah, we were finishing this question, the first part of the question, like, do we want it rebooted or not? So that comes after you go, and then we go back in the cycle.
Okay. Oh, okay. Sure. Sorry about that.
No problem. So that's why I'm okay with them deviating. I personally don't have a problem with them deviating, but I want them to give us a universal Bond prequel. I want teenage Bond. Was he an asshole? Was he timid? Was he bullied all the time? And then something switched when he joined the military? How was he in the military? It doesn't have to take the whole movie, but maybe at least 30 to 40 minutes of it. And then the rest of it is him becoming an agent. Have him start as 01. And then by the end of the movie, because of some serious situation, and we find out that they were all traitors, he ends up becoming 006. Then in the second movie, halfway through it, he becomes 007, or 007 retires, says, I'm done with this life, I can't take it. And it'll actually be Daniel Craig, or it'll be Pierce Brosnan, or you don't even have to say that they were 007s. They'll just say, you don't need to worry about who I am. Have them come back and say, hey, look, we've been where you are. If you truly want this, this is what this life is like. And this is how it could end for you. This guy could die. Your best friend could try to kill you. Your wife could be creating an entire genocide in a different country. And you knew nothing or could do nothing about it because it was all a part of the plan. So if you want to be a 7, we're not going to stop you. But just remember, we tried to give you an out. So they pass him a card and he just stares at the card in the third movie. He's like, do I want to leave? Do I want to leave? And then that's when the whole, finding out the other ones might have to kill him, but not really. They just had to verify if he could be trusted. And if he was just going to be fired, And then he's like, it's too stressful for me. I got to go. I'm tired of this. You could have told me that. I was thinking they were going to tell me throw a shit fit with M, and then just leave. And then whoever was 006 in that movie is now the 7 for the next movie. Like, there's so many things you can do without relying on the books. And also, the books are finite. They're going to run out if they would just do the books. So I think all roads theoretically lead to deviating, but I just wanted to start with a prequel. And that's all I get. Now,
I have a lot to say about that last part that just is not... All right. So, I'm more... Well, I've read the book. I'm more well-read on James Bond, to just put it that way, on the literal sense that I've read the books. 00 just means he has a license to kill. So 006 does not become 007. 001 is not a baby. They're all people that possess the license to kill. And what that means is that the British government, they are an agent that is being promoted to a level where they have the authority to decide to kill someone without repercussions. So they do not have to bring him to trial and bring him to a court-martial. They have the right to kill in the field. They have been given, through trust and experience, the right to make that decision. When they threaten to revoke James Bond's 00 in several films and books, it's not because they're threatening to revoke him as an agent or kill him. It's that they're threatening to revoke his job as that field agent. They're going to make him an informant, or one of the guys James Bond meets that gives him information that does more casual spying. James Bond's job is to, he's like the, he's like the go in and get the job done guy. They have other agents that are there spying. James Bond comes in when that's fucked. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I feel like I gotta raise my hand. But wait, quick. This is a really quick question. So get back to what you were saying. But are there 0020s, 75s, 001,206? Like,
No.
because for me, how high does
Yeah,
it go?
there were some in previous movies. And
No, he's asking if there are any past the number 10.
oh,
The
okay.
answer to that question is not, to my knowledge, in the books or films. There's nothing explicitly that says they wouldn't do that. The only films that really used, there was a 00 agent in the opening to Octopussy. He's like dressed as a clown and gets killed. And there's a few 00 agents mentioned in other films, like 00 blah blah blah. I couldn't figure this out. And 006 is of course the main antagonist of GoldenEye. Great movie, holy fuck! By the way, if you want like a more modern James Bond adaptation, and you've seen Skyfall, please watch GoldenEye. It's fantastic. I mean, I just ruined the twist villain, but you've had since the 90s to watch it, so
Yeah,
you know what?
I'll still watch.
So,
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really fun, and it kind of ruined the other Brosnan movies because of how good it is. That like, even though I like some of the other ones, they're just not on the level of GoldenEye, and no one would, GoldenEye's a top 5 Bond film. Even the people that love Skyfall love GoldenEye, and even the people that love Goldfinger love GoldenEye. So it's a great equalizer. Everyone loves it. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
I can't think of a Bond fan that doesn't like it. If you don't like how slow the old ones are, you'll still like GoldenEye. If you don't like how fast-paced and American the new ones are, you'll still like GoldenEye. So it's just got a really perfect blend. Okay, well, I want to cover one thing as well, because I've covered what 00 means, that no one is going to become 007. What it means by that woman became 007 is he's no longer working for them, and at the same time, she rose through the ranks as a spy and got the designation 007. Now, there's a little coy remark, oh, you thought they'd retire it, which I guess is implying he's surprised that 007 coincidentally got sent to find 007's former title holder. I do not have a problem with 007 being a woman, anything. That doesn't bother me. I do have a problem with making James Bond a woman. Because James Bond is not 007. James Bond is James Bond. Now, I actually liked Idris Elba, and I would have loved to cast him. I don't think he's a good cast now, and the reason for that is he's just too old for the role. But the reason why Idris Elba is a good cast is not because he's black. It's because he's fucking classy as hell. That man, class runs through his pictures into your mind, and that's what makes him James Bond. I don't think casting James Bond on the level of like, well, we want a minority, so we're gonna pick one, is the right way to approach James Bond. I think we need to approach James Bond on how good you fit that role. And there are black British people that are fucking classy and would fit that role. But it shouldn't be picked on their race. I think that's wrong, And I don't think it has to be a Scottish guy. Obviously we've had a mix of British people. Where we go from, we have and like you said, I think that was a really good point, Houston, that, they're intertwined. And I pointed that out because they literally wrote James Bond as Scottish because of Sean Connery. The character is so intertwined that the author rewrote the character to match the actor. Now, you mentioned an Australian, so I'm assuming you don't know this. The second James Bond is Australian. George Lazenby is an Australian model who was modeling in the UK. He played one James Bond movie. It's called On Her Majesty's Secret Service. It's fantastic. It's got skiing scenes that were shot with a gold medal skier doing the skiing stunts. They're amazing. It's by far the best Blofeld film in the Bond series. I highly recommend it as well. As far as James Bond being a role where the previous James Bond will come back and say something, I don't like that if they're not James Bond saying something. But then the movie's not James Bond. It's 007 and James Bond is coming back and saying something. Because James Bond is not a role people inherit. 007 is a role you inherit. 007 is the job. James Bond is the man. And Daniel Craig is the only reason anyone thinks that it's some theory of like multiple Bonds. That's all Daniel Craig. Because they rebooted the series entirely. All of the previous Bonds have callbacks to prove that every actor is the same man. And there's proof of that. So, for example, in the opening of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he quits as James Bond. He's threatening to quit. because they're pulling him off the Blofeld case, and he's not happy about that. And he goes through his mementos, and they're items, they're props from the earlier Sean Connery films. But it's Lazenby going through them and reminiscing about Sean Connery films. And the opening of the film shows the previous villains and girls, but doesn't show James Bond. And that's on purpose, to make sure that the audience knows that George Lazenby is James Bond, not 007. He is James Bond. He's playing the same character as Sean Connery. And spoiler for On Her Majesty's, I'm serious warning, because it's such a good film, and I'm really sorry. But there's no way to prove my point without mentioning it. James Bond gets married in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which happens in the book. That actually is an adaptation of the book. And his wife is killed. And some of the other movies reference the fact that James Bond was married, that there was a Miss Bond, because there's a moment in Roger Moore's career. It's actually a really terrible intro to a good movie, but it's so cheesy because they got rid of Blofeld after a really bad movie, and they didn't ever wrap it up, so they needed a way to wrap it up, so they kill him in an intro segment, which was really dumb because he gets like dropped into a steam stack. It's really stupid, just trust me. But it starts with James Bond, played by Roger Moore, the third Bond, laying roses on the grave of his dead wife, Teresa Bond, from the previous film. Bond is hunting Blofeld as Sean Connery in Diamonds Are Forever, a terrible movie, because Lazenby didn't come back, basically. They got Sean Connery again. And he's getting revenge on Blofeld. Why? Blofeld had his wife killed. So, do you see the pattern here? We have Timothy Dalton, who's Welsh, since we're doing the whole British world tour. Roger Moore was born in London. Sean Connery's Scottish, but of Irish descent, partially. Timothy Dalton is Welsh, and Pierce Brosnan is Northern Irish. So they really did a world tour of just the UK's dependencies, right? Dalton, there's a moment in one of his films where a woman asks about if Bond would ever get married. And her husband kind of like, who's Felix Leiter, by the way, kind of snaps at her and goes, "He was, don't bring it up." So all the films, and then Brosnan, it's a little less clear, but there's, I believe, a reference to it. I'm pulling a blank on it right now, but something like he was married once, someone says, which this is not a different character every film. There isn't going to be a scene where Craig and Brosnan show up and are like, "It's all right, you'll be a good James Bond," because there isn't multiple James Bonds. There's one James Bond. He was married, his wife got killed, and his background is always the same. Now, I don't like your idea for an origin story. I'm sorry to poo-poo it. The reason I don't like it is I know James Bond's origin story, so it's a little less... James Bond's an orphan. He's raised by someone connected to the government. His parents die in a skiing accident, including his father and his mother, because they liked skiing. And he's raised basically to be a spy.
Yeah, I know. That's fine, bro. We just need you to tell us what you want.
Yeah, I will. I just was saying that. Yeah, go ahead. You want to say something?
Real quick, I also want to second that. I don't want to see his backstory part either. And that's not because of what you said, England. It's because of, because I don't know his backstory, but I don't want to. There's I think there's at least him growing up, like him as a kid or a small teenager, that's too much. I think it's the same way that the Joker's backstory is a bit ambiguous, or at least it's supposed to be. The less we know about you, the better. I don't know. I feel like James Bond, you're not supposed to really get to actually know him. He's unknowable. To me, that's my opinion, but I want to throw that on there too. I second not knowing too much because I feel like it would ruin him.
So I don't know much more than what I just told you. And I've read the books. The point is you're not supposed to know James Bond, and he's not supposed to be mourning his wife every day. He's a mysterious person. And that disconnectedness and that mysteriousness of him, and in Casino Royale, the book, the first book, he falls in love and considers quitting being spy. And then she dies. He has been, yes, he's a womanizer, but he's been given the short end of the stick in luck so many times that every time he's considered getting a life for himself, it falls to shit. And you're not supposed to, he's supposed to be mysterious. He's supposed to be tall, dark, and handsome. He's supposed to be someone that makes you want to know more, not someone you're supposed to know intimately as the audience. the audience has to be watching the spectacle of James Bond, not, oh, we're on the same page as him, but no one else is. Because then that's just not James Bond. That's some other franchise that does a different thing. And I don't really want to see that. Now, I hated the ending of No Time to Die. I'm just gonna say it. It's been out a while. They kill him, so James Bond dies. Sorry, you're getting that spoiler. It's all right. The movie's not that good, so don't worry about it. Now, the reason why it's not that good is because James Bond gives up. You know, he gets told you're infected with some magical disease, nanite garbage, and basically, if you go to your loved ones ever again, you'll die. And he's like, well, I guess I can't see my kid. I'll just die. James Bond does not give up. James Bond is not a quitter. Where was the scene in the movie where James Bond was told, well, there was another agent who got infected with this and they couldn't do anything, and he ended up killing his family? We didn't see that in the film. We just get told that by Q, basically saying, well, it's permanent. Okay. I want as an audience to believe that statement. To me, it feels like when you say, like, the villain can't be beaten. You know, but then, of course, we know that the villain can be beaten, but the hero has to find a creative way to beat him. It felt like Bond quit. And that was unforgivable for me. Like, Bond, even if you haven't seen the movies, he's supposed to live. He's supposed to be... He's supposed to win. I mean, it's part of his character. He's an emblem, not a individual in a way. And his survival is key to his character. And they rebooted a lot of the stuff with Daniel Craig. I actually originally liked Casino Royale. I've had a harder time with it now that it's a good movie. I do recommend it. But I've had a harder time with it now that I've read the books. So that changed my perception of it a little bit, because I just like the book better than the movie, and it's like it kind of spoils it. As far as reboots go, it's going to be hard to go back to the original Bond series, right? Since now we've lost that by having Craig create a new separate timeline where Bond dies and is a new agent at the start of his series. It's hard to go back to the old Bond where it was all one, every actor was playing the same character. That's hard to go back to now because they've already gotten rid of that. So ideally, I would like to see them bring back a continuous character stream, maybe a new one, maybe a new set of a new timeline, but all the new actors are going to be playing the same guy. Because I like that. It doesn't matter what race the guy is or what hair color he is. Or, you know, they can cast whoever's the best actor for it and is a good actor that's charming and radiates class. I think they need to be a younger actor. I think the problem with the older actor thing is it's just a different, you know, how long till we get to like the last Die Hard movie? You know, I don't really want to see an old guy getting the shit beaten out of him, but you know, and they did this old James Bond thing. Since you mentioned they you know, would they mix it up? They did. Never Say Never Again, that weird Thunderball reboot, is actually James Bond as an old man, and he's in like a retirement care facility type thing. He leaves, but like he's like sneaking alcohol in there. So they did a lot of those jokes already that you're talking about where Bond is old. It's just that they did them in the 80s, so it's been a while since they did that, but they did in fact do that. You know, I think some of the characters could be better. I don't like the idea of an ensemble cast Bond. I do like the idea of a second field agent though, because you're mentioning that they should have like multiple 00s in the field together. I think the 00s are skilled enough that they don't need to keep sending reassurance of more and more and more. I think less is more. Another 00 checking him out is good. Multiple is not. And no, the 006 would not be 007's boss. The desk job is M's job. The 00s are field agents. They report back to the main boss. The main boss is always M. And the reason for that, you have to understand, is the books are written by Ian Fleming, who was a desk naval operator. And he actually monitored spies in Europe, and he was a Navy commander like James Bond. The writer wrote a character from a role he was intimately familiar with, but he was basically Moneypenny, where he knew where all the agents were and he knew what they were doing, but he didn't do it himself. So the books, in a weird way, are written from the perspective of Moneypenny. Now, Ian Fleming was very straight, but Moneypenny obviously fantasizes about Bond, and I think it's because Ian Fleming fantasizes about being the field agents he sat behind the desk, admiring. And I think that Moneypenny's written in that way that it isn't like Bond doesn't want her because she's not pretty enough. It's that it's unattainable, just like being the field agent he admired was unattainable for him. Does that make sense? So I think that it's good to keep it a little bit more mysterious and a little bit more. I don't like the idea of like another 00 being sent in to like check on him. That's a little weird. In the new movie, I mean, not the new movie, in First Light, it makes sense because, like, 009's defected. So, of course, they would send in another 00 to get him. But if the 00s aren't defecting, they don't need to have that plan. Right? Because they're all trusted. They've gotten that high enough ranking. They've been in the agency a while. Okay. Yeah, I think they should reboot it. And I think I'd like to see some of the early books adapted. I'd like to see Moonraker adapted for real, not whatever horrible movie we got in the 70s. I'm sorry, people who like Moonraker. They literally made Moonraker a space movie because of Star Wars. They literally said, Star Wars is popular, let's make a space James Bond, and let's just take the name Moonraker because... I think now they do have the license to the books, and Ian Fleming is dead. So the red tape that was a problem when they didn't want to make those movies is now, while it's still a disaster, it's not nearly as bad. So I think they can now, at this point, make the film adaptations to the books that we've been waiting for, which are several books that they just used the titles from. Obviously, you would need to change the titles because they've used the titles already from all the books. Except Risico, which they used the plot of, but not the title, weirdly enough.
What movie was that?
They never made a Risico movie, but they used...
No, I mean, what title, what plot did they use it on?
They used 2 short story Bonds, Risico and Property of a Lady, which would be a pretty lame Bond title, let's be honest. And they used that to make the film Octopussy, which is what Octopussy was a fucking disaster. There's a third Bond book that was never adapted title-wise. It's called The Hildebrand Rarity, which was also somewhat used for Octopussy because it's like they're chasing a rare fish that has poison or something. It's like a stingray. They used that with like the poison octopus was kind of the stand-in for that. Property of a Lady is about a Fabergé egg, which was a big part of the Octopussy plot. So they kind of adapted some of the short stories into like one movie, and they used some of their plots. I think Hildebrand Rarity is the only title one that was never like really adapted, but it'd be kind of weird, I think, as a movie. It's kind of a goofy plot, like tracking down a rare stingray seems a little silly to a modern audience.
Yeah. Okay. So with that being said, I'm gonna throw the dice back over to you, Mr. Houston, and why don't you tell us who you think should play the next Bond and why?
Okay, so, my original thought for this answer was honestly just Idris Elba, but like you mentioned, he's a bit older, so I'm actually not too sure. I might just honestly, I can't. This guy, Patrick Gibson, right? He looks a lot like Tom Holland to me. Like he just looks like Spider-Man. And honestly, no, that's a bit crazy. If Holland can't play James Bond, I think we need. I don't know. My answer was honestly just I need to come up with Idris Elba, but I think I'll just stick with Idris Elba or someone who looks like him. And he does. I think we should look because I said my answer is let's change Bond up, let's shake up the box. We should find a Bond who is not white, and it doesn't have to be black, but just not white and does drip that Bond energy. So someone who has that charisma. But we should. What I'm trying to say is, we should start off with the off-white page. I know you said earlier it should be black charisma, which I agree. I'm just saying we should look at a different menu person. There's that guy from D&D, that Dungeons and Dragons movie. He's in the chat right now. What I don't know. I forgot this man's name. But,
Chris Pine.
Yeah, Rajesh on page. People suggested him for
Yeah.
one, so I was throwing
Okay.
him out to you.
That's not bad. And he's in Bridgerton too, right? Right. He's also in Bridgerton.
Yeah, he's Bridgerton, like main male lead.
Yeah, that's not a bad cast. But we need someone like that. But honestly, he could be Chinese as long as the person is off-white to shake it up. And like them being off-white. Well, by the way, the only reason I think that's important to shake up is that it changes. Like, Bond is an everyman, yes, but it changes the background, the setting, how he views the world slightly. And like slightly, but in a good way. Like moving your hand slightly when you're firing a gun changes where it goes down the road. It's a small enough deviation, but a big enough one to make Bond different in my eyes. So yeah, I think I will choose this guy from Bridgerton and D&D, and you guys said his name earlier, and I forgot it instantly. But yeah, I pick him. Sure, why not? Yeah, I honestly don't have too strong of a fan choice. Just as long as he's off-white and does have the Bond energy. But yeah.
So I've been wrestling with this question for many a year. I got 3 picks. I'm gonna just get the obvious one out of the way. And yes, the answer is partially because he's popular, but also because we finally get to see him do something with his hair because he got to be in that James Bond taper. Kit Harington. Okay? Now, I literally do not have a reason outside of he is a good actor and I like him. Everyone else, I can go deeper. Second pick, Clive Owen. Clive Owen, to me, if you Google him real quick, he's someone who literally looks like what my brain makes James Bond look like. If I don't think about Pierce Brosnan or anyone else who has played James Bond, I picture Clive Owen. And what is half the goal of James Bond actors? To make people feel like I am looking at James Bond. Daniel Craig never did that, and I like his movies. He never did that. I never felt like I was looking at James Bond. I felt like I was looking at Daniel Craig. And that's not an insult to him. I know it's easy to talk about how unattractive he is, but first and foremost, fuck you. But also, I understand that James Bond is meant to be someone who is attractive. It's like if I say I'm selling fish and chips, and when you come to my store, I'm selling fire hydrants, we have a problem. But also, there's no way to get to that conversation without it sounding just like really mean and offensive, so I'm not going to go there. Like I said, I respect him as an adult, and even more, I respect him as a father. I really do.
Are you saying Craig is ugly, or are you saying Clive? Are you just
Craig.
Wait, Craig?
I don't see that.
I don't.
Okay, well, it was a big, it was a big whining thing next to the James Bond pun. People, when he first got announced as Bond, people were bitching up and down the internet that he's too unattractive to be Bond.
Freaking Craig?
Yes.
Weird.
And they were always talking about the man's ears, I swear to God. Anyways,
I mean, I have my own controversial opinion on him. I think that Barbara Broccoli thinks he's hot and cast him because she liked him. Because I watched.
That's how most good actors get
away.
away.
He was picked, and she was like, he walked on the stage, and Broccoli like, he's Bond. It's him. And I'm like, well, I don't see that, so it must be that she likes how he looks. Which is totally valid. Hey, her dad, Cubby Broccoli, who was the original producer, 100% cast women as Bond girls based on how he felt how they looked. In fact, he cast Britt Eklund completely on her boobs from Wicker Man. And he was really disappointed. In fact, I was reading Roger Moore's book. He described Cubby Broccoli as, quote, deflated because her boobs were smaller because she was pregnant during Wicker Man or had just given birth and her boobs were bigger. And then she was really small during Man with the Golden Gun, and Cubby Broccoli was all like butthurt about that. So, you know what? Casting Bond on what you think attractive, I don't think is invalid. But I do think...
Yeah, there's a limit, and he went over that limit. Yeah, bro, that was fucking disgusting. See, that's the shit that a lot of old... Yeah, that's the type of shit that a lot of old and new actors be talking about when they say, Just because, you know, we work for a producer doesn't mean we hang out with these people. Shit like that. But
I think Barbara 100% finds Craig attractive and cast him because she likes how he looks. I don't think it's that controversial to suggest it. We know her dad was like that with the female actors. So that's my opinion on it. Because, like, second she saw him, he doesn't even like James Bond. He dislikes the character.
we know he kept trying to quit.
Never seen any movies. He had never seen any James Bond movies before his role casting. Houston, that means he knew less about James Bond than you were being humble, because you at least saw one fucking movie. This man was British and saw no movies. All right, anyway.
Makes me feel better, honestly. Craig said it.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the reasons. That is like my main. Yeah, and that was one of the main things that people always were complaining about. He literally never didn't complain. One of his first interviews, I hate Bond, I'm never going to do this again. Does next movie, I hate Bond, never going to do this again. Does next movie, I hate Bond, it's finally over. I'm doing it again, but it's over. I'm like, bro, how the fuck did you even get this job? And I'm pretty sure Windsor just gave us the answer. But so here's my thing.
Idris cast right after Skyfall. They should have brought Idris in. And no Spectre.
He wasn't popular enough at the time. No, I'm not mad, but he wasn't popular enough at the time. People would have said, who the fuck is this guy? But that's also what they said about Daniel Craig. So now my final pick for me, and this is one I legit had to sit on. I legitimately had to sit on. I know he's not, I guess the term would be well respected, but the main reason is because his character already hits those qualities that rarely get discussed. And that is, and this is a tie for me. I can't figure out which one it should be. Okay. It's not Henry Cavill. I'm gonna just get that out the way. He's too fucking buff. Okay. I'm just getting that out the way. It's a tie between Tom Hiddleston and Charlie Cox, who are also friends. Yeah. Tom Hiddleston, because what has been his entire character? A sneaky bastard with charisma. He's the asshole and he's the bad guy. But even as early as his second movie, even as early as the first movie he appears in, after that, everybody just started liking Loki more and more and more and more. And it wasn't because of the good writing. Yes, there was good writing, unless you get to Thor 3, but we don't talk about Thor 3 and Thor 4. 3 was a good movie, but not for the reasons that it should have been. 4 was just a god-awful. But Tom Hiddleston can make you love an asshole. And that's the type of person a Bond actor needs to be. Someone who can make you love an asshole. But here's the thing though. The Charlie Cox factor. Charlie Cox is legitimately an actor who appreciates his craft. When Charlie Cox isn't acting in a major motion film for Hollywood or Pinewood, he's on a Broadway stage. Hiddleston's pretty much the same way. They've done shit together. Okay, they're like legitimate friends. But also at the same time, Charlie Cox can make himself appear as the everyman. Because when you think of Charlie Cox, you don't think dolled up, manly man, extremely pretty ladies man. You don't think about that. He can switch between the two. And what is a spy supposed to be able to do? Put on a mask. If I saw Charlie Cox walking down the street, I wouldn't think it was Charlie Cox if he was just wearing basic clothes, because it's Charlie Cox. He'd be way more fancier. And also, he hasn't gone through any of the zhuzhing up, if that even means anything these days, that a Bond actor normally goes through. You know, get the hair refinements, get a specific style that suits you, always be clean shaven. Almost anytime you've seen him play his characters, he got a 5 o'clock shadow, and his hair is what his basic hair is, which I'm not saying his hair is terrible, but it's not much to show. You can tell it's one of those hairs that it wants to grow in length, but he always cuts it because he's not comfortable with it. So it kind of hovers above his head in these weird angles that you feel like he's putting in product, but he's not. That's just his hair. Okay. But you're not picturing him with the 5 o'clock shadow going, smooth face. You're not picturing him in a suit that costs more than a car, or with so much hair product in his head, his hair gains an extra 2 pounds and the shit slicked back. Okay. Personally, if I could have a hybrid of Charlie Cox and Tom Hiddleston, I would have that motherfucker play James Bond. But for now, it's a two-way tie between those two, because I could use those same words about both of them. The only difference is Hiddleston is very much infatuated with actual hair care products. We are well aware of that fact. but he still won't buy a fucking hairpin or a hair clip. So that's what I would like. But also, they're at a specific point in time in their life where they look ambiguously between late 20s, or at least Charlie Cox does, and early 40s. Hiddleston just looks like he is a middle-aged man. And depending on what type of Bond they're trying to make, he's already in the perfect age group, but they gotta move fucking fast. Because I'm gonna be honest with you right now, Hiddleston does almost none of his own stunts. This is not something that is hidden, and he's barely done any action movies. Charlie Cox is another matter completely. Charlie Cox, like I said, he's devoted to the craft on that level. He might not do all of his stunts, but all those action sequences, he's gonna have them in the back of his head. He is Daredevil for me, because he understands how the character works, not just in the physical, but in the emotional aspects. And remember, he has to pretend he's blind at the same time, okay? His level of the technical skill we've seen him display, we don't get to see many other actors display. I can call off maybe 3 actors in my past 20 years that pretended to play a blind person. And almost none of them even did action sequences. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's like, I'm like 60% Charlie Cox, 40% Tom Hiddleston. Tom Hiddleston's biggest problem might be the same as Idris's. He's qualified, he can pull it off, but that age is catching up with him. And it shows in his face. Whereas with Charlie Cox, no. Charlie Cox is right where he needs to be. The real question is, how thick or light is his accent going to be? And how well can they clean him up and make him a pretty boy? Because he's not an unattractive man, at least as far as I know, as a heterosexual guy. I'm not used to judging other dudes in general. But I think that they don't have to do much to make him have that ladies' man effect. And they could even play with it in the movies. He goes around the scene, he wants to change clothing, he wants to look like a bartender or a waitress or something because he's being chased and he got no guns. Boom, fuck the hair up, put on a white button-up shirt he always got, take the blazer off, put on a vest, hold the tray, and I would never think that, oh, this motherfucker is a 00 agent. He can look like what he's not supposed to and what he's supposed to. Daniel Craig couldn't do that for me. So, yeah, those are my main picks. And Yingling, I believe you wanted to say something? Again?
Real quick, Zach, great picks. I have to say that, dude, great picks, Zach, real quick. Not to jump in front of you, Yingling. When you first said those 2 names, I was like, what the hell is he talking about? But, yeah, no, great picks, man. I
appreciate it. Like I said, I've been thinking about this for years, well before this episode.
Yeah, so I've thought a lot about James Bond picks ever since Craig was still doing Skyfall, well before he was I was thinking he was getting too old for the films. And like I said, I really think Idris Elba should have been cast then. I think the train or the ship has officially, left the station or sailed. And that's a real shame because I think Idris Elba would have made a great James Bond. And I'm going to say Clive Owen, I'm putting him in that same boat. He's 60. That ship has sailed. A good Bond that won't get his chance. And that's not the first time that happened. I mean, Cary Grant, if you haven't seen North by Northwest, it's a classic spy film. It's a Hitchcock film. It's amazing. In many ways, North by Northwest is the inspiration for the James Bond movie. And it should come as no surprise to you that Cary Grant was offered the role of James Bond right away for Dr. No, which he turned down. Because he said he considered himself too old to play that role. And there were actually a number of other people. In fact, Patrick McGoohan, who you might not know, but he was the main actor for Secret Agent, also known as Danger Man. And he was also the main actor for the 60s sort of psychological spy film, series, The Prisoner. He's American, and he was actually considered for the role of James Bond. And same with Stephen Reeves. In the 1960s, when Connery was picked, was also American and considered for the role of James Bond. Stephen Reeves wanted more money than they wanted to give him, and Patrick McGoohan did not like Bond because he considered Bond morally problematic. Patrick McGoohan was very moralistic. I don't like a womanizer character. I don't like this type of... And he didn't want the role for that reason. And there were a few other people actually picked for the role or thought of for the role. In fact, Adam West was offered the role at one point, and he felt that the role should remain British. And Clint Eastwood also felt the role should remain British and said that following Sean Connery would be a tough act for him. And Burt Reynolds was considered for the role of James Bond and turned it down, but later regretted it because he thought he could do a fine job. And then he went on to turn down Han Solo. So That's quite a bad.
I really want to like Burt Reynolds. I really do, but he keep doing stupid shit that I would have loved to see.
Yeah, his movies can be pretty bad. Mel Gibson's also being considered for the role. So that's it. That's all the Americans I know of that were ever considered. And you want a controversial person. Fuck, Sean Connery's no longer controversial next to Mel Gibson. Sean Connery is a chill man who never did anything wrong.
I'm offended you even brought up Mel Gibson.
So the point is they've considered casting non-British people, and they have in fact cast one Australian, as we know, and there's more I could bring up that are British or Australian that they've considered for the role. They even considered Dick Van Dyke at one time, which would have been really funny because he was in like musicals mostly, but his British accent was so shit in Mary Poppins that Cubby Broccoli said, I'm not even gonna offer that role to him because of how bad that accent is, which is quite funny. And actually, for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Dick Van Dyke only agreed to do it if he didn't have to put on a fake accent. That was like part of his own criteria. He's like, I'm not doing that again. So, and they still wanted it. Now,
Good he did that.
I don't like it. Is a good movie, and yeah, it does save it a lot because that is one bad fake accent. I don't know why I don't really get Bond. I don't get the Bond energy from Charlie Cox. I don't want to diss Charlie Cox. He's a good actor. He's a nice guy. But I looked at some pictures of him, and I just
Hey, Engling, you're supposed to tell us and the audience who you want, not critique every pick we made.
I'm allowed to critique your picks.
You literally are not, but you're doing it anyway.
I'm gonna do it. All right. So he gives me old Harry Potter vibes. I'm sorry, just does. I like Henry Cavill as James Bond. Henry Cavill is classy. Henry Cavill, there isn't a picture of the man. I don't think he's
Too buff.
He's too buff, but have you seen Daniel Craig, bro?
Yes. I didn't remember saying I wanted Daniel Craig as Bond either. No one said that.
Well, yeah, I stand by. I don't want James Bond to look too desk jockey. And I'm sorry, Charlie Cox.
Sorry.
Yeah, I like Henry Cavill as James Bond. I've also thought about Tom Hardy as James Bond before. And I like Sean Page because he's classy. That's the thing. I don't look at James Bond to be anything else. James Bond is supposed to be funny, intelligent, cunning, tough, gritty, and classy. That's it. Now the problem with Craig is Craig isn't that classy, and he's not that intelligent. His Bond charges through fucking walls instead of opening doors. It makes a good movie, but it doesn't make a good James Bond. I don't want a James Bond who looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator. And so I have to agree with you on the buff bit, but I think Henry Cavill can do it. I actually really wish Christian Bale actually considered James Bond one time at the same time as Daniel Craig. And yeah, he would have been a good James Bond, better than Daniel Craig. I don't know if that's a compliment, but he didn't want the role, reportedly, because he felt like American Psycho was too similar to James Bond, which I think is...
Are you fucking serious?
No,
I'm serious. I'm dead serious.
no, whoa. No,
I know, right?
The reason he can't be Bond is because he was American Psycho. He's too weird.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's a nice guy, kind of, in a weird way, but he's not. Sorry to interject. I'm so sorry to interrupt. But there's no freaking way. No, those are two very different characters. One's a serial killer, and I guess James Bond is a serial killer.
It's just what he said. I don't know.
One's a psycho.
No, one fantasizes about being a serial killer because his life is so boring, and one's life is so exciting that he temporarily can be licensed to be a serial killer.
Thank you. Well played.
Yeah, I don't know. I also don't. I think that those are my three main picks. Would be Cavill, Tom Hardy, or I don't know how to say his first name. I'm really sorry about that, but it's like Rege accent. So it's like
Reggie. It's Reggie, but you go into it with the SH. Reggie Jean Page. personally, I don't have a problem with those. Tom Hardy seems fucking disturbing to me, but hey, it's your pick. I'm not going to spend 15 minutes critiquing it. Okay, now.
I only critiqued yours for like 20 seconds. I called him Harry Potter, but old.
This man sat up here and said he only critiqued me for 20 seconds when I have the video edit. Okay. All right. With that being said,
During that time, I talked about like American bonds and stuff. I didn't just critique your pick. I did that very quickly. I stand by that.
we gonna see when the edit comes out. Moving on. All right. With that being said, no, you just kept going into it at random. Moving on. All right, Mr. Houston. I appreciate you coming through. You want to tell the audience again where they can find you and your show?
Yeah, so they can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Podcast Guru, and all those other places that podcasts are found, including YouTube. I have a ton of editing looking me in the face with old podcast episodes that have to make the transition from audio to visual on YouTube. So I'm in thumbnail hell. That sounds weird. Thumbnail hell. But making thumbnails and fitting my video for editing skills on. But pretty much go to YouTube, look up 1000 Crazy Questions. It's 1000 crazy questions. Or go to Instagram. That's the best place to find my clips and everything that I'm doing. Instagram is by far the best. And yeah, 1000 Crazy Questions. Look it up. It's a podcast, and I also do some reviews on TikTok and whatever else, but they're all connected. So if you find one, I'm sure you'll get to the other. Yeah, thank you for having me on, man. Thank you guys.
Yeah, no problem. And, you know, be sure to give me links to all that stuff so I can put in the video description box. And I'm pretty sure I'm on all that same stuff too, minus Stitcher. I really need to figure out if I'm on Stitcher. I know I'm on iHeartRadio as of like 4 months ago. With that being said, Ingling.
I gotta see you guys the hair thing.
What?
It's really funny. That's a wig.
What are we talking about?
So Sean Connery's hair is not his real hair as James Bond. I know, right?
Oh, we know he's bald. Yeah.
It's a wig ever.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's funny that the first Bond was going bald in like when he was young. You know, he wears a wig for his. It's just a really good wig. It's kind of amazing that a billionaire president's wig looks like a shitty matted carpet, and a fucking nobody actor from the '60s had a fucking perfect wig and a perfect suit.
I disagree with that statement. He's not a billionaire. Moving on. Thank you again for coming, Ingling. Always good to have a knowledgeable motherfucker pop through, even when he's breaking apart everything I said. And with that being said, I will see you guys in the next one. I don't know if you guys may want to or not, but one day this game will come out. And you know, who better to review it than us? If you're interested, let me know.
I'd be interested. Yeah,
cool.
We'll see.
See you guys in the next
It
one.
was nice to meet you, Houston. You're a cool guy.
Nice to meet you, England. You too.
Peace.